Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
Kanehagakure no Sato, main gate. The sun was just rising over the horizon, once again bringing life back the forests that surround Kanehagakure. To Izumo Kamizuki and Kotetsu Hagane, it was turning out to another boring day of gate and traffic duty. Why do we ever agree to take this job? Nothing ever happens at the gate, asked Izumo as he stifled a yawn. I don't know, but I have a feeling things are about to get much more interesting very soon, said Kotetsu. Little did he know, his prediction was about to come true. Approaching over the horizon towards gates of Kanehagakure no Sato was Team 20. Though they kept their expression neutral, inside they were all preparing for a fight. They knew Konoha would do anything to get the son of the Yellow Flash and the Red Death back, but they weren't going down without a fight. Do you all sense it? Asked Darui in a low tone, while he kept his eyes on the road ahead. Yeah, we've been under surveillance for the last hour or so. Do you think they'll make a move to grab Naruto-kun? Said Yujito, while she tightened her hold on said boy's hand. I doubt it. They've known of our presence long before we entered Fire Country, and if they wanted to make another attempt at me, they would have done it as soon as we crossed the border and make it appear as though someone else did it. Not to mention they know that I have the lightning-style armor in my arsenal. It's well known that the only ones that know that jutsu are either the Raikage or the next in line for the mantle. So they probably believe I have a strong political sway in Kumo, and because of that they wouldn't dare do anything too reckless. Their next move will probably be to try and entice me back to village, so they can get at least some political pull or advantage over Kumo, said Naruto, not looking away from the looming gates of the village. His team nodded in agreement. Even Konoha wouldn't be stupid enough to try something that could lead to all-out war with Kumo. Halt, what is your business here? Said Izumo. He and Kotetsu tried to look intimidating, and failing measurably. Naruto turned to look at who spoke. That voice sounds familiar. Crap, he recognized Izumo and Kotetsu from the few times they had helped him with a prank. Team 20 of Kumobikure. We're here for the upcoming Chunin exams, said Darui as he handed them a couple of papers. Izumo looked over the papers before handing them to Kotetsu, who nodded in acknowledgement. All right, everything here is in order. We just need your names for the traffic report, said Kotetsu as he took out a pencil and a file. Team 20 all stiffened slightly. They knew this could lead to an all-out fight if things got out of hand, and they had to be ready. I'm Team 20 Sensei, Urui, said Darui, while he slowly reached for shuriken holster. Karui, Kunoichi of Team 20, said Karui as she stretched her arms so her hands were near her katana. Yujito ni Kunoichi of Team 20, said Yujito, leaning into Naruto's left side a little more, so she could reach for a kunai in secret. Naruto hesitated slightly, but put on a neutral face and spoke. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, shinobi of Team 20. This made Kotetsu and Izumo freeze. It couldn't be. The kid had disappeared 6 years ago. He couldn't be the one standing in front of them. Could he? They slowly looked up to face the boy that spoke, spiky blonde hair, eyes bluer than the ocean itself, and the 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek. Their eyes kept getting wider and wider the more they looked at the boy, but when they saw the whisker marks on his cheeks, they knew it was him. Naruto, is that you? Asked Izumo barely above a whisper. Said boy nodded his head, but kept his face impassive. He may have considered them friends before he left, but he had cut all ties he had with this village. Almost. Kotetsu was about to ask a question when 4 surrounded the Kumo team. The captain spoke in a demanding voice. Naruto Uzumaki, you will come with us. The Hokage wishes to speak with you. Naruto looked at the assembled and gave a small laugh before replying. Really, Kakashi? I thought we already went through this by the border, said Naruto to the dog-masked I don't know any Naruto Uzumaki, and if your Kage wishes to speak with me, then it shall be when I feel like speaking to him. I am not of this village, and I will not be ordered to do anything. The were about to make a grab for him, when they all felt the presence of their leader appear behind them. Stand down, said Hiruzen Sarutobi as he walked up to the group dressed in his Kage robes. He looked over the group with a critical eye, but stopped when his eyes landed on the familiar blonde hair of his deceased successor. Naruto, it's good to see you again. Where have you been, my boy? Naruto didn't respond. He only looked the Hokage with a blank stare. This seemed to unnerve the aged Kage, as I thought Kumo has poisoned the boy's mind. They have rid him of his emotions, and that girl on his arm is probably only to seduce him and keep him in Kumo and away from his rightful home here in Konoha, thought Sarutobi as he looked over the group before him once more. Now, Naruto, why don't we go to my office so we can talk? Asked the Kage while he tried to wrap an arm around the boy's shoulder, keyword being tried. Naruto swatted the hand away, and his team each pulled their weapons in defense. Don't you dare touch me, you useless excuse for a Kage, snarled Naruto with so much venom in his voice it made every Leaf ninja present flinch. It's worse than I thought. They must have placed a loyalty seal on him, thought Sarutobi as sent a discreet glare to the assembled Kumo team. Letting out a sigh, Sarutobi nodded sadly. Very well, Naruto. You and your team may go, said Hiruzen, spitting the word team like it was venom. This didn't go unnoticed by Naruto or his team. Putting away their weapons, they made their way into the village to find a hotel to stay at. Turning to the team, Sarutobi spoke in low growl. You are relieved of your temporary posts in return to your regular duties, and keep an eye on them no matter what. They have done something to Naruto, and I want it fixed soon. Try triggering some of his old memories that should help him fight whatever those bastards in Kumo did to him. We cannot lose the heir to the Namikaze. And Uzumaki lines. The 4 present nodded and removed their masks and cloaks before disappearing into the village. Soon, Naruto. Soon you shall be back in your true home, Konohagakure. With that thought, the Hokage shunshin back to his office. With Team 20. The old man is either getting senile in his old age, or he's just plain stupid, said Naruto sitting down in the hotel room he and his team had booked. Though I agree with you, Naruto, why do you believe the old is senile or stupid? I may not hold much respect for him, but he is known as the god of shinobi and the professor for a reason, said Darui sitting across from the blonde boy. Karui and Yujito nodded in agreement with their sensei. While they may hate the old Kage, he is quite formidable. Based on a few facts, first, he still thinks of me as an immature little boy. He thinks I need to be taught how to act, and he is the only one who can do it. Also, you wouldn't notice it unless you knew what to look for, but he sent a glare at you all when I told him not to touch me, said Naruto, surprising his team. Not to mention, when he dismissed us, he spoke my name with kindness while practically spitting the word team when he referred to you all. If I were a betting man, I bet he thinks that someone in Kumo placed a loyalty seal or something of the sort on me. This made his team tense up. If the Hokage made such an assumption, what's to stop him from outright attacking them? That's not the worst of it, though. It was the way he looked at Yujito-chan. He thinks that she's either trying to seduce me so Kumo can have another Namikaze and Uzumaki clan, or she's just with me to keep me in Kumo, growled Naruto, while he radiated killing intent. Yujito moved to sit in his lap and wrapped him in a hug to calm him down. It wouldn't be good to attract any more attention. And they already had. You're probably right, Naruto. You're the best profiler on this team, and you've never been wrong before. We need to be extra careful during our time here in Konoha. None of us, myself included, and you especially Naruto, are to go out into the village alone. We need to stick together no matter what while we're here, said Darui with a serious tone. His team nodded in agreement. They were brought out of their thoughts when there was a knock on the door. Instantly, all four were on guard with weapons drawn and ready for a fight. Naruto looked over to Darui, who nodded in return. Forming one of his favorite hand signs, Naruto created a shadow clone and sent it to answer the door, while he and his team hid and prepared for an attack. "Who is it, and what do you want?" asked the clone while he drew a kunai and got into a defensive stance. The answer everyone heard was not what they were expecting. "It's Kakashi Hitaki, Mike Guy, Kurinai Yuhi, and Anko Mitarashi. We're not armed, and we would just like a chance to speak with you," said the voice of Kakashi. Surprised, the clone decided to make sure they weren't lying. Putting away its kunai to the clone approached the door with no thought of defense. If they truly wanted to talk, then they wouldn't do anything. But if they did, he would dispel and give his creator a heads up. Opening the door revealed that what Kakashi had said was true. None of them were armed, not even with the basic shuriken holster on the thigh. Kakashi and Guy had even left behind their Jounin vests as even more proof. The clone tried to release any Jinjutsu that might have been in place, but found none and beckoned them into the room. "It's all right. They are unarmed, and there is no Jinjutsu in place. They were speaking the truth. They just want to talk," said the clone before he dispelled in a poof of smoke. The real Naruto came out of his hiding place and walked into the center of the room, surprising the Jounin present that they hadn't sensed where he was hiding. "You wanted to talk," he said in a demanding voice. "What about your teammates, Naruto?" asked Kurinai, trying not to sound threatening. "With all due respect, they would prefer to stay hidden. However, should you try anything, you will see them, right before you die." "Now what is this about?" said Naruto. The Jounin flinched slightly at the tone, but understood his reasons for it. "Naruto, we came to tell you to be careful around the Hokage. He is not in his right mind as of late. Started Kakashi. He believes that someone in Kumo has done something to you to make you loyal to them. He probably suspects a loyalty seal or something along those lines." To the surprise of the Leaf Jounin, Naruto snorted in amusement. "So I was right in my assumption that the old coot thinks Kumo has done something to me. I can assure you that I am under no such seal or jutsu," said Naruto, looking them in the eye. "We know, little brother," said Anko, surprising the Kumo team, except for Naruto. "We know you couldn't have been under any kind of seal or jutsu because of a certain jutsu you have in your arsenal. You mean the lightning style armor, don't you?" It was more of a statement than a question. "So you know what the jutsu does to the body when it is used?" "Yes, Naruto. I have faced the current Reikage once before, and with the help of my Sharingan, I was able to get an understanding of what the lightning style armor does to the body. Because loyalty seals and jutsu that do the same target the synapses to transfer information based on whatever order is given. The stimulation caused by the lightning style armor would counteract and cancel any such jutsu or seal placed on you. You are and have been making your own choices. You chose to go Kumo, and you chose to cut your ties with Konoha," said Kakashi, finishing in a saddened tone. The other Jounin had similar looks on their faces. They had lost the person they all thought of as a little brother. "Thank you all for understanding. And while I have cut my ties with this village, I have not cut ties with my brothers and sisters," said Naruto, with a small smile towards the Jounin. Guy, who had been unusually quiet during the conversation, had anime tears rolling down his face as he brought Naruto into a bone-crushing hug. To still think of us as your siblings. Your flames youth burn brighter than the sun, little brother, said Guy while Naruto started turning blue in the face. No, problem I can't breath, wheezed Naruto as he struggled for the precious gift called oxygen. Guy might want to let Naruto breathe, said Anko with a sweat drop. Realizing she was right, Guy quickly released Naruto and he started gulping down as much air as he possibly could. Let's try that again, said Anko while moved over and hugged Naruto once he had regained his breath. Returning the hug, Naruto allowed another smile to grace his face. While he had left the village out of spite, he had truly missed his brothers and sisters. Kurenai got up and joined in on the hug, as well with Kakashi and a calmer guy joined in as well. Naruto's teammates smiled at the scene from their hiding spots. Naruto had mentioned on more than one occasion his adoptive siblings he left behind in Konoha. To see him reunited with the 4 people who truly accepted him in this village was heartwarming, to say the least. Ending the hug, though reluctantly, Naruto signaled for his team to come out. While I would love to spend the rest of the day hanging out with all of you, you should get back to your duties and keep this meeting a secret. The less the Hokage knows, the better, and I don't want you to get into trouble because of me. For now, we should all go about our normal business. I think it's safe to assume the old fool told you to keep an eye on me, right? Said Naruto. The 4 Jounin nodded the affirmative to the question. Okay, then do that. My team and I will do what we normally do, and we won't try and stop you unless it is absolutely necessary that we lose you. Just try and make sure you're the only ones watching us okay. We don't need any surprises while we're here. Everyone nodded in agreement with the plan, and with a few quick introductions and one last hug, the 4 Leaf Jounin left to return to their usual activities, with similar thoughts going through their heads. When the Chunin exams are over, I'll be leaving with my little brother. A week later, day of Chunin exams. It was the day the Chunin exams were to begin. Naruto and his teammates were heading towards the academy, where their sensei had said the first portion of the exam was taking place. As they continued on their way, Naruto couldn't help the question that slipped out of him. I know there are 3 parts to the Chunin exams, but what the hell kind of tests could be held at the academy? His teammates nodded in agreement. The fact that the first part of the exam was taking place at the academy suggested that it was either pointless or incredibly easy. Though they knew never to assume that anything would be easy, Darui had drilled that thought into them when they first became a team. Thinking something was easy was the first step down the path of arrogance, and the easiest way to get yourself killed. Once they entered the academy, they made their way to the 3rd floor where the first part of the exam was being held. After they went up a set of stairs, they found a bunch of Genin grouped together around a door with 301 over it. Are they seriously falling for that low-level Jinjutsu? Thought Naruto, looking at the backs of the gathered Genin. Turning to his team mates, he raised an eyebrow, to which both of them nodded their heads, indicating they had similar thoughts. Walking down a side hallway, they continued to make their way to the 3rd floor for the exam. When they reached the real room 301, they were blasted with killing intent when they entered. Raising an eyebrow at the killing intent coming from the other Chunin hopefuls, Yujito looked at Naruto, silently asking if they could have a little fun, Karui mimicking her actions. Looking over his shoulder at his 2 teammates, Naruto nodded his head, answering their question with a familiar fox-like smirk on his face. The genin who were gathered in the exam room, waiting for the rest of the participants to arrive and for the exams to begin, had been using their killing intent to intimidate the competition, but all of them. Were thrown for a loop when the newest team to walk in, which they noticed was from Kumo, unleashed unimaginable amounts of killing intent. Now, the amount of killing intent wasn't what scared the Chunin hopefuls. Anyone with enough anger could unleash lots of killing intent if they wished. No, what scared them was the thickness and density of the killing intent let off by the three. It felt as if there was a physical weight on everyone's shoulders, forcing them down on the ground and to submit to the obvious power of the Kumo team. Naruto and his team moved to one of the corners near the door to wait for the exams to begin and to observe the other participants. That was fun. Did you see the looks on all of their faces? Priceless, said Karui as she was trying and failing to control her laughter. Yes, it was. That should hopefully scare off a couple of the ones with common sense and keep them out of our hair. Now all we need to do is plan for the more idiotic ones and be ready for anything they might try, said Naruto while he surveyed the genin present, most flinching when his gaze landed on them. A few minutes passed, and in that time, most of the stronger genin were able to shake off what remained of Team 20's killing intent and began to use their own to intimidate the new competitors. Naruto turned to look at the newest arrivals when he heard the door open only to come face to face with Team 7. The brooding Uchiha in the lead with his lost puppies right behind him. Well, things just got a whole lot more interesting, said Naruto barely above a whisper, but his team heard him. Both turned to see Team 7 talking rather loudly with the newly arrived Team 8 and Team 10. They looked over all of them and matched their descriptions to the ones Naruto's siblings had given them. The first one was a feral-looking boy with a white puppy on his head. He wore a gray jacket with black fur lining the hood and black shinobi pants. On his face were 2 red fangs on both of his cheeks and short spiky black hair with his headband tied in its proper position. This was Kiba Inuzuka, the heir to the Inuzuka clan of. The next one had long spiky brown hair with a pair of sunglasses on his face. Most of his face was hidden by his high-colored gray jacket. He had brown shinobi pants on and his headband around his forehead. This was Shino Aburame, the heir to the Aburame clan of bug tamers. The last member of Team 8 was the only female on the team. She had on a tan jacket with white fur surrounding the bottom of it. She had blue shinobi pants on and her headband was tied around her neck. She had dark blue hair and the pale lavender eyes of the Byakugan. This was Hinata Hyuga, heiress of the Hyuga clan. Kurenai had told them that while they were originally designed to be a tracking unit, they could each hold their own in a fight. The next team was Team 10. The first member was a lazy-looking boy with black pineapple hair. He had a mesh shit under a half-gray vest with green lining and brown pants, and his headband was tied around his left sleeve. This was Shikamaru Nara, heir to the genius and lazy Nara clan. The next boy was rather chubby. He had a tan shirt with a red kanji on the front and gray shorts with bandages wrapped around his legs and forearms. He had a green jacket over his shirt along with a white scarf wrapped around his neck. His headband looked like a pair of underwear on his head around his brown hair. This was Choji Akimichi, heir to the Akimichi expansion clan. The last member of Team 10 was another boy with pale white skin with a black shirt that showed his midsection along with a half jacket like Shikamaru, only his was black with black shinobi pants. He had black fingerless gloves and a tanto strapped to his back. His headband was somewhat hidden by his straight black hair, and he seemed to have a permanent, emotionless expression on his face. This was Sai, some unknown from the academy. Soon after they started talking to each other, a guy with silver hair in a ponytail and glasses on approached them. "Let's listen in," said Naruto. Nodding their heads in agreement, all 3 channeled chakra into their ears to listen in on the conversation. With the rookie 9. "You know, you rookies should really be more quiet. You're drawing a lot of attention to yourselves, especially from that Kumo team over there," said the silver-haired kid. "Oh, this can't end well," thought said Kumo team while the 3 Konoha rookie teams turned to face them. Teams 8 and 10 just looked at them with indifference. while Team 7 seemed to freeze at the sight of them. They don't look that tough. Hell, I bet even Sakura and Ino and could take on the only shinobi of the team, said Kiba while his dog barked in agreement. He turned to gloat some more when he noticed that Team 7 wasn't moving or even breathing. Hey, what's up with you three? This seemed to catch the attention of the rest of the rookie teams. They turned to look at their fellow rookies and noticed all of them acting strangely. Sakura and Ino were shaking in fear while quietly hyperventilating. They were leaning on each other for support just to remain upright. Sasuke's behavior, though, was what caught everyone's attention. The normally calm, cool, and collected Uchiha was sweating bullets while looking at the Kumo team, specifically the lone shinobi of the team, with fear evident in his eyes. His normally pale complexion was even paler, if that was possible. This caught the silver-haired teen's attention. Sasuke seems to know something about that Kumo team, and if they can put fear in his eyes, then they could pose a problem later on. Something about that Kumo team doesn't feel right, muttered Shino. Why do you say that, Shino? Asked Kiba. Because Kiba, my insects can sense a person's chakra, and if what they're telling me is true, then that Kumo team is extremely dangerous, said Shino. This raised even more questions in the Konoha rookies' heads. First, Sasuke is scared to death by this team's mere presence, and now Shino is saying that his bugs believe them to be that dangerous. Well, if you want to know something about anyone in the exams, I have information on everyone who's participating, even you rookies, said the silver-haired boy as he brought out a deck of orange cards. This seemed to break Sasuke out of his fear-induced stupor. He turned his head so fast towards Kabuto that the rest of the rookies were surprised he didn't snap his neck. I want all the information you have on Gaara no Sabaku from Suna, Rock Lee from Konoha, Karui of Kumo, Yujito Ni of Kumo, and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze of Kumo, said Sasuke with barely contained fear in his voice when he spoke the last three names. Kabuto was drawing a card every time Sasuke said a name but froze when he heard the last name. Apparently, he wasn't the only one surprised by the last name Sasuke said, since when he froze he heard a large gasp come from all of the Konoha ninja around them. They all turned to look the lone male member of the Kumo team, and each nearly had a heart attack at the resemblance the boy had to the fourth Hokage. Shaking off his shock, Kabuto drew the last card and put some chakra into the cards to reveal the information on them. Okay, first we have Gaara no Sabaku. His mission history is 25 D-rank missions, 8 C-rank missions, and Woa B-rank mission as a genin impressive. His teammates are his siblings Temari and Kankuro, and his sensei is Baki of the Wind. I don't have much on his skills since he's from another country, but it seems he's returned from every mission without so much as a scratch on him. This caused many of the Konoha rookies to shiver at the thought of how much power he had. Next is Rock Lee. He's a year older than you guys, but this is his first time taking the exams. His mission history is 28 D-rank missions and 10 C-rank missions. His sensei is Mike Guy, and his teammates are Niji Hyuga and Tenten. His taijutsu has improved significantly over the past year, but his genjutsu and ninjutsu is non-existent. The Konoha genin all shrug their shoulders. If all he could do was taijutsu, then how strong could he be? Karui of Kumo. Mission history is 15 D-rank missions and 5 C-rank missions. That's odd she and her team barely completed the minimum requirement of missions needed to participate. This surprised all the rookies. Based on Team 7's reaction, they were expecting them to have more missions under their belt. Her teammates are Yujito Ni and Naruto Namikaze like Gaara. I don't know a lot about them, but from what I have, her taijutsu, jinjutsu, and ninjutsu are all average. Her skills in kenjutsu are slightly above average. Overall, she seems like an average kunoichi. This raised questions inside of the entire Rookie 9. She doesn't seem that strong. So what caused Team 7 to go all pale at the side of the team? Maybe it was one of the blondes? Yujito Ni, teammate to Karui and Naruto Namikaze. Mission history is the same as her team. Her taijutsu, jinjutsu, ninjutsu, and kenjutsu are all average. Frankly, there isn't anything impressive about her. Nothing impressive. I'll show you nothing impressive, you little bastard, thought Yujito, trying to keep her composure and not destroy Kabuto. Lastly, Naruto Namake's teammate to Yujito Ni and Karui. His Jinjutsu is almost non-existent. Taijutsu, Ninjutsu, and Kenjutsu are all slightly above average. Out of his team, he is the one that poses the biggest threat, said Kabuto. Now the Rookie 9 were confused. Team 7's response to seeing the Kumo team made them appear much more powerful than Kabuto's info cards made them appear. They didn't have much time to think on it, because there was an explosion of smoke at the front of the room. When the smoke cleared, it revealed a scared Jounin and at least 30 Chunin. Quiet down, you bastards. My name is Ibiki Marino, and I'm the proctor for the first part of the Chunin exams, said the scared Jounin. Now each of you will come forward and receive a number. Once you have your number, there will be your seat during the written exam. This surprised many of the Chunin hopefuls, but also served to terrify them as well. Written exam? You have got to fucking kidding me. The first part of the Chunin exam is a written exam. Thought the only Kumo Genin in the exams. Everyone moved forward and received their number, and after everyone had a number, they moved to their seats. Naruto looked around and noticed Karui and Yujito were in the same row as him, just at different ends. Karui was toward the right with Yujito toward the left and him in the middle. We got lucky with the seating for our team. With this positioning and our unique way of signaling each other, we shouldn't have any problems with the written portion, thought Naruto as Ibiki started going over the rules for the written test. Once Ibiki had finished going over the rules, almost all of the genin were even more concerned about how well they would do on the written portion. You have 1 hour. The 10th question will be given when there is 15 minutes left in the hour period. The first part of the Chunin exam begins now, said Ibiki once all the tests were handed out. No one wasted a second and began to try and answer any question they could. Naruto was looking over the questions on the test, and the more he read through them, the more he began to think about the rules of the test. So that's your game, is it Ibiki? Well, two can play at that game, thought Naruto while tapped his desk, lightly catching his teammate's attention with a coded signal. Once they signaled back, he began making discrete hand signals that their team had come up with so they could signal one another using their own unique code. Don't answer any questions on the test. The true purpose is to test our information gathering skills while in intense situations. The last question is most likely a no-win situation question. Just play along for now and act ignorant of the exam. After he sent the message, he waited for them to respond when they each signaled a quick understood. After they had finished their short conversation, all three of them just leaned back and enjoyed the show of the rest of the Chunin hopefuls struggling and squirming under the strain of the test. They noticed that most of the Konoha rookies had figured it out and were using their clan's secrets and techniques to get the answers. So that's the Kumo team Lord Hokage wanted me to keep an eye on. They seem to be masking their true capabilities like true shinobi, and judging from their posture and the hand movements they just did, it would appear they figured out the true meaning of the exam and are just enjoying the show, thought Ibiki from his spot in the front of the class. He was about to turn away from them when the only male on the team caught his eye. He was looking straight at him while making hand gestures. What surprised Ibiki was that they were the signs the interrogation department used to signal one another during interrogations. The silver-haired kid with the ponytail and glasses knows too much. He has classified information, and judging from his scent of snake summons, he is either an accomplice to Orochimaru or a very good friend of Anko's, which I highly doubt. Now, Ibiki was shocked. Not only did this kid know the signals the interrogation department used, but he was helping them by identifying a possible spy in the village. Shaking off his shock, Ibiki signaled back. How do you know these signals, and how do you know for sure he smells of snake summons? Naruto nodded in acknowledgement to the signals and responded, as to how I know them, that's not important right now. How do I know he smells of? Snakes. Simple, I have enhanced senses from my furry friend. Shaking his head at this information, Ibiki just gave quick, all right, I'll have it checked out, and went back to watching over the exam. It was time for the 10th question to be given, and of the original 62 teams that had entered, only 30 or so were left. Naruto noticed Ibiki getting ready for his grand finale and signaled his team to be ready. All right, bastards, it's time for the 10th question. Now, before I tell you the final question, there are a few more rules that are unique to the 10th question. First is that you can choose whether to take it or not. This caused mummers to erupt around the room, with many wondering why they were given a choice. Should you choose not to take the question, your points will be reduced to 0, and you and your team fail. But should you choose to accept the question and get it wrong, then you will be barred from taking the Chunin exams ever again. Everyone present, save for a select few, were shocked at what would happen should they get the question wrong. Now, those of you who wish to quit now, simply raise your hands. Your number will be recorded, and you and your team will be allowed to leave. A couple of people raised their hands and withdrew, leaving a little over 20 teams. After waiting to see if anyone else was going to drop out, Ibiki let a smirk cross. His face at this next part. Very well. If that is all who wish to leave, then to those of you remaining. There is only one thing to say. Congratulations, you have successfully passed the first part of the Chunin exams. The remaining genin were surprised, though relieved to hear this. After Ibiki explained the reasons behind the exam and was about to dismiss the genin, a black ball crashed through the window and unfurled, revealing a banner saying, "The super sexy proctor of the second exam, Anko Mitarashi," with said Kunoichi standing in front of the banner, causing many of the male participants to have nosebleeds and the females to feel slightly jealous of her figure. Smirking at his sister's antics, Naruto couldn't wait for the next exam if she was in charge of it. With her in charge, I'd be surprised if any of us are still in this thing at the end. All right, you maggots, there's no rest for you brats. You have 10 minutes to get to training ground 44 for the second part of the exam, said Anko. No one moved, and they all continued to look at the strange woman before them. What are you maggots waiting for an open invitation? Get your sorry ASS in gear now. That did the trick, as the room was cleared in less than a second. Turning to her fellow interrogator, Anko gave Ibiki a smirk. Well, I'll catch you later, Ibiki, once I wipe out at least half of the brats with my exam. Anko stood just outside the gate to what she liked to call her personal little playground. Before her stood the genin who had managed to pass the first exam. Most of them were bent over trying to catch their breath from the insane sprint they did to get there. However, she noticed that her little brother's team hardly looked winded. Smirking in their direction, she cleared her throat loudly to gain the attention of the genin. All right, maggots, you'll be spending 5 days in here, and your objective while in here is to get both of these scrolls, a heaven and an earth scroll. Once you have both scrolls, you'll make your way to the tower in the heart of the forest. Now, once all of you sign these consent forms, go to the booth over there to receive your scroll, said Anko, while handing out the consent forms and waiting for all the teams to sign them and give scroll. Most of the teams were hesitant at first until they saw the team from Kumo sign the forms without hesitation and go to the booth and receive their scroll. Not wanting to be showing up, the rest of the teams soon followed Team 20's example and signed the forms before getting their scrolls. With Team 20. At Gate 20, Naruto and his team were planning what to do once the second exam began. We'll find the nearest team and take them down before they have time to react. Don't hold back. We move in hard and fast and get out in under a minute. Leave no trace of our presence and eliminate the bodies, said Naruto. They had decided that while they were in the forest, away from prying eyes, they would use their true strength to finish the exam as quickly as possible. So we finally get to go all out. It's about damn time, said Karui as she sharpened her katana, while they waited for the exam to start. Yeah, it's been a long time since we were allowed to go no holds barred, said Yujito while she stretched slightly. Yes, it has been a while since we went all out. The last time was against Darui Sensei and B Sensei in our last spar before we came here, said Naruto while they waited for the announcement to start. They didn't have to wait long before Anko's voice sounded over the speaker system. All right, you worthless maggots. The second part of the Chunin exams begin now. The gates flew open when her voice stopped, and the teams didn't waste any time and launched into the forest. Team 20 stopped on a high branch about 5 minutes into the forest. So who do we hit first? Asked Karui while she kept an eye on their surroundings. Yujito-chan, you're the censor of our team. It's your call, said Naruto, giving his girlfriend a smile. Returning the smile, Yujito put her hands in the ram seal and started to focus on the nearby chakra signals. She stayed like that for a few minutes before she opened her eyes and turned to her team. There are 3 teams near our position. The first one is Team 10 from the first exam. The second one is a team from Kiri, and the third one is a weird team of Kusa Ninja heading towards Team 7, who are the next closest to our position, she said while Naruto looked in the direction she pointed in when she mentioned a new team. Of all the chakra signatures, the Kusa team has the largest, and I'm fairly certain one of them is Orochimaru, based on the evil feel of the chakra. We know Team 7 skills from the Wave mission, and if what Kakashi said was true, they aren't any better than they were then. The Kiri team is the closest, and they seem to be about the same strength as Team 7. All right, we'll go after the Kiri team, and if they don't have the scroll we need, we'll go after another team, said Naruto, getting a nod from his team. Lead the way, Yujito-chan. Nodding again, Yujito took off in the direction she sensed the Kiri team with her team mates on her heels. They ran for about 5 minutes before they came upon the Kiri team, setting up a campsite for the night. All right, we take them hard and fast, strike from a distance, and don't show mercy. They moved into position so they could take out the entire Kiri team at once and not give them a chance to counter. Once they were in position, they didn't hesitate, and each took out their target in their own unique way. Naruto took out a kunai and launched it at the back of his target's neck, killing him instantly. Yujito used 2 shuriken and impaled her target's head from both sides. Karui jumped from her hiding spot and snuck up on her target and decapitated her before she knew what was happening. Well, that's all of them. Now hopefully they have the scroll we need, said Karui as she started going through her target supply pouch. This one didn't have the scroll, she called to her teammates as they went through their kill's belongings. This one doesn't have it either, called Yujito after she finished checking her kill's pouch. Got it, called Naruto as he pulled an earth scroll out of his target's pouch. Damn, it's another earth scroll. I guess we'll have to find another team and hope they have what we need. So we're going another team then. Yujito, are there any others around besides Team 7 and the Kusa team? Asked Karui as she walked over with Yujito. Give me a second. I'll check it out, said Yujito as she once again put her hands into the ram seal and began to focus. There aren't many other teams nearby, except for a team from Konoha that isn't Team 7, 8, or 10. All right, we'll head towards the Konoha team as soon as we destroy this campsite and remove the bodies, said Naruto as he picked up the body of the person he killed and placed it next to the bodies of his teammates. Going through a few hand signs and ending with the tiger's sign, fire style, fireball jutsu. Bringing his right hand to his mouth, he exhaled a fireball that incinerated the corpses of the Kiri team. Going through another set of seals, Naruto once again raised his hand to his lips, wind style, great breakthrough. The ashes that had been left behind by the bodies were lost to wind and spread throughout the forest. While he was doing this, Yujito and Karui had gotten rid of the campsite and were waiting for him to finish. Let's get moving. With that, they took off towards the Konoha team with thoughts of payback in mind. 30 minutes later, Team 20 stood on a branch overlooking the clearing where their next victims were sitting. The team was made of 3 boys, and they had a heaven scroll sitting out in plain sight. Raising an eyebrow at the scroll sitting a few feet away from the team, Naruto turned to look at his teammates. This team is either really strong or really stupid. If they have their scroll out in the open like that, then there are either traps set up to stop attackers, or they are that confident in their skills that they can defend the scroll, said Naruto, as Yujito and Karui nodded in agreement. If they think they can fight us off, then let's test that theory. Making a familiar cross-shaped seal, Naruto performed one of his favorite jutsus, Shadow Clone Jutsu. An exact clone of Naruto appeared in a poof of smoke before it jumped away to complete its task. "Let's go," said Naruto as he jumped off of the branch they were on and launched a hail of shuriken at the Konoha genin. The Konoha team, who had been discussing what they planned on doing after they became Chunin, jumped out of the way of the rain of shuriken just in time to avoid any serious injury, thought. They got a few cuts. Looking up, they barely had time to register that the Kumo team they had seen in the first exam was falling towards them each with a blade drawn and ready to kill. Shaking off the slight bit of fear they felt at the sight of the team, they each drew a kunai and charged Team 20 with the intent to finish this quickly. Breaking away from each other, Team 20 each took on one of their Konoha counterparts. Naruto and his opponent met with a clash of steel as ninjato and kunai clashed over and over again, neither of them giving an edge. Ducking under a kunai strike to the head, Naruto tried to sweep his opponent's feet out from under him, only for him to jump over the kick and aim a kick of his own at Naruto's head. Sidestepping the kick, Naruto swung his ninjato up, hoping to remove his opponent's left arm his body. Seeing the sword about to remove his arm, the Konoha ninja jumped away, but couldn't avoid the strike completely, if the long gash on his arm was any indication. Yujito charged her opponent before letting loose a few kunai to throw him off balance. Unfortunately, he managed to avoid the kunai and threw a couple of his own back at her. Blocking the kunai she couldn't dodge, she went for a roundhouse kick to her opponent's head, which was blocked by his forearm. Using the arm as a fulcrum, Yujito rotated her body and brought an axe kick down on her opponent's shoulder with a satisfying crunch. Moving away from her, the Konoha ninja tried to throw some shuriken at her, but with his arm's current state, he could hardly move it. Not wanting to give him any time to make another move, Yujito moved in fast and removed his head from his body. Karui had immediately put her opponent on the defensive with her relentless kenjutsu strikes. He tried to go for a kick to her midsection, but she positioned her katana so that his foot would meet the sharp end of the blade. She wasn't disappointed when his foot cut itself on her blade, giving her the opening she needed to finish him with a sword to the heart. Looking over and noticing his team mates had already finished off their opponents, he decided to end his little spar as well. However, before he could move in for the kill, he noticed a shadow move and grabbed the heaven scroll that had been sitting out during the entire fight. Not a second later, he got his clone's memories after it dispelled, letting him know the position of the scroll. Breaking away from his current struggle, Naruto jumped to stand near his team before addressing the lone Konoha ninja. Well, that was fairly entertaining, but I'm afraid that we must be going. We have what we came for. With that team, 20 jumped back into the trees and found where the clone had left the scroll. Pocketing the scroll, Naruto and his team left in the direction of the tower with the cries of the Konoha ninja left alive echoing in the night. Central Tower, 2 hours later. Team 20 had just made it to the entrance to the tower after avoiding about 5 teams who tried to ambush them. Man, I knew the villages had gotten a little lax in the years, but they call those an ambush. Those are the kinds of traps they made us do in the academy, said an annoyed Karui. The last 3 times someone tried to ambush them, one of the males on the teams had smacked Karui's ass in each attempt. Needless to say, those 3 had an unwilling and quite painful gender change. Well, come on, let's head in before someone else tries something, said Naruto as he opened the door and bowed, saying, "Ladies first." Yujito smiled at the gentleman's side of her boyfriend, while Karui just patted him on the head and said, "Good boy." Naruto growled slightly at being referred to as a dog. This caused his two team mates to fall over laughing, and Kurama to start thrashing in his cage with laughter. "You have to admit, Kit, that was funny. Oh, I hope your mate does that more often," was what he heard from the fox who had been quiet as of late. "Can it fur ball, or should I subject you to that memory again?" thought Naruto, and smirked as Kurama instantly shut up. "Please, for the love of Kami, not that thing again. I swear I'll stop. I won't do anything bad. I be a good boy. Just please not that," cried Kurama, who was rocking in the fetal position in his cage. "Hey, Yujito-chan. Karui remind me to thank Guy and his mini clone for what they showed us the day before the first exam," laughed Naruto as he walked up to them. Said Kunoichis shared a confused look before a look of fear crossed their faces. Naruto couldn't be taking about that, could he? "Naruto-kun, I love you with all my heart, but please tell me you aren't talking about that sadistic, unbreakable jinjutsu of theirs," said Yujito, with obvious fear in her voice. Naruto's fox grin told them all they needed to know, and both Kunoichi shuddered and prayed to Kami, Yami, and Shinigami that they were never subjected to that unforgiving jutsu again, shaking his head at his team's antics, but not really being able to blame them for it. Naruto looked around the room and noticed a message written on the wall. Quickly reading over the message, he came to the conclusion they needed to open the scrolls now. Taking out the scrolls from his pouch, Naruto handed the heaven scroll to Yujito. "I think we need to open the scrolls now," said Naruto while slightly opened the flap of the earth scroll. Yujito copied his actions, and with a nod to each other, they opened the scrolls at the same time. They looked at the scrolls for a second before Naruto recognized the summoning seal of the scrolls and threw his to floor Yujito, mirroring his actions. The second the scrolls hit the floor, they started to smoke, and the three Kumo genin were on alert and ready to strike. When the customary poof of smoke occurred, the three moved to trap the newcomer before the smoke cleared. Once they had the person in a three-way death hold, they were about to finish them when a very familiar voice stopped them. "Excellent work on completing the second exam so quickly, team. Now, if it's not too much trouble, could you please let me go?" said Darui, who was currently being held in an awkward position. He was bent backwards with Naruto's ninjato at his neck ready to decapitate him, while the tip of Karui's katana was at his spine ready to sever it, and Yujito's wakizashi was dangerously close to piercing his heart. "Oops, sorry, Darui-sensei," said Karui while she and her team removed their weapons from their sensei's body. "No harm done, and I'm proud that you were ready for anything and weren't taking any chances. If I could, I would promote you all to Chunin right now for that display of teamwork and resourcefulness," said Darui as he gave his team a proud smile, which was gladly returned. "Now, I was sent here to explain that message on the wall, but I really don't care about that, so why don't we just head up to our rooms and wait for the other competitors to finish the exam?" With that, Darui lead his team farther into the tower and toward the upper levels where the rooms for the competitors were. "Naruto, and I will take this one. Yujito and Karui, you two can have that one," nodding their heads in agreement. The Kumo team went into their separate rooms to rest. The next day, council chamber. "This is a serious problem, Sarutobi. We must get the Kyubi Jinchuriki back into the village," said Hamura Mitokado to the assembled council, which consisted of high-standing civilians and the heads of the clans in Konoha. Nodding in agreement with her fellow elder, Koharu Yuditane, spoke as well. "Hamura is right, Sir Toby. We must get the Kyubi Jinchuriki back into the village no matter what." Many of the clan heads nodded in agreement. Not only would they have the power of the Kyubi back in their control, but they would also the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki back. While many on the Shinobi Council agreed that it was critical that they get Naruto back in the village, the civilian council wasn't so adamant about having the so-called demon brat return. "No, we must not allow that demon to return to this village. What we should do is send every ninja this village has to kill the monster that took away Minato-kun, screeched the head of the civilian council, Sayuki Haruno. Many present flinched at the volume of her voice. They knew that she was Minato's biggest fangirl, and had completely lost it when Minato and Kushina started hanging out more when they began dating in secret. It was also common knowledge that she blamed Naruto for everything the Kyuubi did, more so than most of the civilian population, especially for Minato's death. No, we will bring Naruto back to village, and he will be treated like the hero his father wanted him to be seen as, said Sarutobi in a tone that left no room for argument. Sayuki was about to start screeching again, but wisely stopped when the Hokage signaled for the Umbu to reveal themselves. Now, we come to our current problem, how to get young Naruto back into the village. I do not see what the problem is, Hokage-sama. Why would Naruto not want to return to the village of his birth? Asked Hayashi Hyuga, head of the Hyuga clan. The Hokage sighed as he knew this would cause a serious headache for him later on. The problem is that I believe those bastards in Kumo have placed a loyalty seal of some kind on young Naruto. When I tried to approach him and welcome him back to his true home, he stopped me and spoke to me with so much venom in his voice that I was stunned. The only reason Naruto would speak to me with such a voice would have to be because of a loyalty seal, said the aged Kaguya as a tear rolled down his cheek. The Shinobi Council and the elders gasped at this. They knew Kumo wouldn't hesitate to resort to drastic measure to get what they want, but to place such a seal on a child was unthinkable. We must do whatever it takes to break young Naruto of whatever seal has been placed on him. The Shinobi Council and elders nodded in agreement, all but one of them thinking of the best way to return the son of their greatest hero to the village. Danzo Shimura, while he was thinking of ways to bring Naruto back to Konoha, was also thinking of a way to get this obviously powerful shinobi under his thumb. The council spent a few minutes trying to figure out the best way to get Naruto back into the village, until Inoichi Yamanaka suddenly stood up with a proposition. Hokage-sama, what if those of us with daughters have them try to seduce or win Naruto's heart to give him a connection to the village? Many of the other shinobi council members agreed to this. It would not only help them to convince Naruto to return to the village, but could also possibly give them an heir to the Namikaze and Uzumaki lines. Yes, that is a good idea, but will be slightly difficult because Kumo has given him some slut to keep him grounded in their village, said the Hokage. Many of the council members scowled at that, to not only use a loyalty seal, but to also use some random slut to make him fall in love was even worse. It doesn't matter, we'll just have to remove her and make it appear like an accident. Then one of our daughters can move in and console him, winning him over in the process, said Hayashi, with the other clan heads nodding in agreement. Very well. After the second stage of the Chunin exams is complete, we will make her disappear during the month-long break, said Sarutobi, getting nods of agreement from the Shinobi Council, while the civilian council scowled. If the demon brat was brought back to the village, then they would make sure that his life here would be hell, and the second he produced an heir, they would have him executed. 4 days later, Central Tower. Naruto stood with his team and the other Genin teams that passed the second exam. Among them were teams 7, 8, 10, and Guy's team. There was a team from Suna that had finished a few hours after Team 20, an Odo team that looked like most of them had gone through hell, and the last team there was the silver-haired boy from the first exam and his teammates. Naruto was staring at the people standing in front of them, specifically a certain old man, with eyes that promised nothing but pain and suffering when he got his hands on him. Before them stood the Hokage, along with their Jounin senseis, standing behind him. Anko stood with the Jounin and had a headset on. Next to her stood a sickly-looking Jounin with a bandana-style headband and the standard Konoha Jounin uniform. Congratulations to all of you for passing the second stage in the Chunin exams. Now, normally we would go straight to the third exam, but seeing as so many of you passed the exam, we will be holding a preliminary round now to cut your numbers down. Those of you who don't think you can compete any further are free to go. Just give your name to the proctor, and you will be escorted out. The only one to drop out willingly was Kabuto, claiming he didn't have any chakra left to fight. One of the sound team made their teammate drop out since neither of his arms were useful. Seeing as no one else was going to drop out, the Hokage handed over control to the sickly Jounin. Hello everyone, my name is Hei Gecko. Like Hokage-sama said, we will be holding a preliminary round where each of you will compete in one-on-one matches. The match is over when one of the participants is unable to continue. I call the match, or one of you dies. Participants will be chosen at random. Now let's decide the first match, said Hei as Anko said something into her headset, and a panel on the wall opened up to reveal a screen with names flying across it. Everyone held their breath as the names continued to scroll across the screen. The screen suddenly stopped on 2 names, and everyone who wasn't chosen let out a breath, while those that were chosen were preparing for a fight. Will Sasuke Uchiha and Yoroi Akado please stay down here? The rest of you can move to the observation platforms, said Hei, while Sasuke and one of Kabuto's teammates stayed behind, and everyone else moved to the observation platforms. With Team 20. So the Uchiha's going first. This should be entertaining, said Yujito as she sat on the railing of the observation platform. Down on the floor, said Emo stood across from one of the members of Kabuto's team. It was hard to tell anything by looking at the guy because of his purple face mask that covered everything from his nose to his neck, and his sunglasses weren't helping. Down in the arena. Hate stepped in between the 2 competitors and looked at each before speaking. The first round, Sasuke Uchiha versus Yoroi Akado. Are the both of you ready? Asked Hate before going into a coughing fit. Yes, said Yoroi in a monotone. Yeah, let's get this over with, said the world's biggest emo. Very well then, the first round, begin, said Hade as he jumped back so as not to get caught in the crossfire. Yoroi didn't waste any time and threw 2 shuriken at Sasuke, following in after them with his right hand glowing with chakra. Seeing the lethal stars, Sasuke pulled out a kunai to deflect them, sending them back at Yoroi. Dodging under the shuriken, Yoroi continued with his charge and launched his right hand at the Uchiha. Rolling to side to avoid the strike that created a small crater on the floor, Sasuke used his kunai to stop his roll and used his feet to flip Yoroi away. Not bad. Better take this a little more seriously, thought Yoroi as he got up off the floor to stare at the still down form of the Uchiha gripping his left shoulder. So the curse mark is still affecting him. Now's my chance. Yoroi charged forward with his right hand, erupting in chakra again. And before Sasuke could do anything, he grabbed onto his head. Sasuke's eyes widened when he felt his chakra leaving him. He's draining my chakra. I've got to end this fast, he thought while he was barely able to swat the hand away, put some distance between them. With Team 20. The emo's in for a hard fight. Judging from the drop in his chakra signature, I'd wager that Yoroi guy has the ability to drain his opponent's chakra, said Yujito from her spot on the rail. Her back was facing the fight while she looked at her team. You're right. If Yoroi can get in close, this match is finished. How much chakra does the bastard have left? Asked Naruto while he leaned on the rail next to his girlfriend. Yujito focused for a minute before she answered. Not much. If he tries to use ninjutsu, even a basic fireball, he'll kill himself from chakra depletion. But if Yoroi can get a hold of him for more than 30 seconds, he'll die because chakra depletion anyway. Nodding in agreement, the Kumo team turned to look at the fight, except Naruto, who felt a pair of eyes watching him closely. Turning to where he felt the eyes coming from, Naruto came face to face with the 3rd Hokage. Judging by the look in his eyes, he has something planned. Hokage or not, if he tries anything to harm Yujito-chan, Karui, or Darui-sensei, I'll make him pay. I don't think you have to worry about him trying anything too drastic. Even humans aren't that stupid, came the ever-present voice of Kurama. Kurama, you know as well as I that humans can be the stupidest beings on the face of the earth. Just look at what they've done to me in the past, and their wrongly placed fear of the Bijou. Just because we're different, that somehow gives them the right to fear and attack us. You make a good point, Kit. Don't worry if that old fool tries anything that threatens either of our mates. He will pay with his life. I agree completely. Naruto, what have those bastards in Kumo done to you? Thought Sarutobi sadly when he saw the young blonde glare at him. I swear, Naruto, no matter what it takes, you will be returned to your one true home here in Konoha. Turning his attention back to the fight at hand, Sarutobi saw Sasuke use a combo he called Lion's Barrage to finish and win the match. Winner, Sasuke Uchiha, said Hate after checking Yoroi and finding him unconscious. Kakashi was about to take Sasuke away to seal the curse mark when he caught Naruto's eye. Wondering what his little brother was up to, Kakashi was about to walk over when he caught something before it hit his face. Looking at the piece of paper in his hand, he noticed that it had a seal drawn on it. Looking back to the blonde for an explanation, he saw him gesture to the paper in his hand and then to the approaching Sasuke. Getting the meaning, Kakashi nodded before leaving with Sasuke to seal the curse mark. What was that you gave Kakashi, Naruto? Asked Darui after the short interaction between brothers. He had an idea, but he wanted to make sure. Kakashi may not be the best at sealing, but he's good enough to seal whatever is affecting the emo quickly. I don't know about you all, but I would rather not have my secret stolen by the bastard and his newly awakened Sharingan. The seal I gave Kakashi was a basic Uzumaki seal that will suppress Sasuke's chakra until it is removed, and it can't be removed except by the one that placed the seal, the one who made it, or a seal master with knowledge of the Uzumaki style, said Naruto, as he turned his head to the screen when it made a beeping noise. It was scrambling through names again before stopping on the next two competitors. Will Shikamaru Nara and Kintsuchi please come down? Said Hate after looking at the board. The girl from the Odo team that had made her team mate quit, jumped down to the floor, and waited for the lazy genius to get down there. Man, this is so troublesome. Why do I have to fight a girl? Asked Shikamaru as he started walk towards Kin and Hate with bored look on his face. So we finally get to see the heir to one of Konoha's most powerful clans fight. Huh? This should be interesting, said Karui from her spot on the wall. Maybe not as interesting as you think. The Naras are known geniuses, true, but they are also known to be some of the laziest people on the planet. From what I knew of Shikamaru before I left, he's considered a genius even among his clansmen, but he's also the laziest, said Naruto with his arms crossed as he watched the shadow user with a critical eye. He'll win, but the fight won't be that interesting. True to what Naruto said, the fight wasn't that interesting or eventful. At the beginning, it looked like Shikamaru would lose when he fell for Kin's Sunbon/Jinjutsu combination. The only real surprise was when Shikamaru managed to catch Kin in his shadow while still disoriented from her Jinjutsu. Once he had her trapped, the fight was over. Using his shadow, he made Kin bang her head on the wall behind her, knocking her unconscious and ending the fight. Once Shikamaru made it back to his team and Kin was taken to the infirmary, the screen started to shuffle through the remaining names again before stopping on the next competitors and bringing a smirk to the faces of the Kumo team. So, I'm up next, huh? Said Karui as she watched her opponent, Yoroi's other team, mate Misumi, jump down to the floor ready to fight. So, Sensei, what do you say? Don't hold back. It's time to send a message to Konoha that if they want Naruto back, they'll have one hell of a fight on their hands, said Darui, smirking at their wide-eyed faces that soon turned into evil smirks at finally being allowed to go all out. Got it, said Karui before jumping over the railing and landing across from Misumi. He was dressed in a similar outfit to his teammates, only his seemed to be a combination of the both. He had the purple bodysuit that all of them wore and the purple masks like Yoroi, but he had clear glasses like Kabuto. The third match, Misumi Tsurugi versus Karui, fighters ready, said Hate as he received a nod from both of them. Then let the third match begin. I suggest you give up now. Once I unleash my technique, you are finished, said Misumi in an arrogant tone. Not going to happen. Kumo ninja are taught to never give up and to never let their comrades down. She glanced over at her team from the corner of her eye and gave a small smile when she saw them, giving her proud smiles. I won't let my team down, so I will win this match. This seemed to anger Misumi since he charged forward with a sloppy backhand. Blocking the poor strike, Karui moved to draw her katana, only to have Misumi's arm start to twist around her arm and the rest of his body wrapped around her, holding her in place with her hand inches from her blade. I've dislocated every joint in my body, and using my chakra, I can control it to wrap around anything, said Misumi from behind Karui. Now give up, or I'll snap your neck. This seemed to unnerve many of the Konoha genin. They never thought one of their own could be so cruel. Many of them glanced at the Kumo team to see how they reacted to their mate's life being threatened. Even the Hokage looked. To the complete surprise of everyone, they were smirking, and the smirks didn't exactly make anyone feel good. I've got to stop the match, thought Hate as he was about to raise his hand and end it before a voice stopped him. Don't even think about stopping this match, said Naruto with his fox smirk still in place. It's just beginning. Everyone looked at him like he was insane. His mate was about to die, and he told the proctor let the match continue. Hate, who was about to stop the match anyway, was brought out his thoughts when he heard a scream, a male scream. Misumi, who was still wrapped around Karui, was screaming, and it looked like he had little electric sparks coming from his body every now and then. Not being able to take the pain anymore, Misumi removed himself from Karui and put some distance between them so he could recover. What the hell was that? Screamed Misumi, who was finding it hard to move any part of his body. Clever girl, said Kakashi as he appeared with his Sharingan out watching the match. What's clever, Kakashi? Asked Asuma, while everyone else turned to Kakashi for an explanation. It's simple, actually. She used her lightning-based chakra and forced it out through all of her chakra points at once, creating a small electric field around her body, shocking anything in range, said Kakashi as he lowered his headband over his Sharingan. I'll to ask her if she can teach me that when I leave this village to be with my brother, thought Kakashi with a small smile gracing his lips. Back on the floor, Karui was smirking at the down form of Misumi as he tried and failed to control his body. Sorry, was that a little much for you? Asked Karui, her voice laced with sarcasm. We don't let our strength go to our heads, but that doesn't mean we can't make others think that we do, thought Karui as she drew her katana and got into a stance. She waited until Misumi was able to actually stand on his own strength after some of the lightning left his system. The second Misumi was able to stand, though wobbly, Karui made her move. Charging in, she waited until she was a few feet away from her opponent before she raised her katana, so it was level with the ground in front of her face. When she was 3 feet away, she jumped slightly and began to spin at high speeds, appearing as a black and gray whirlwind. She landed a few feet behind Misumi with her sword still in the same position. She swung the blade behind her and started sheathing it. When the hilt clicked after it hit the sheath, Misumi suddenly exploded in a shower of blood and organs. His body had been sliced in several places and was leaking blood like a river. Some of his appendages were scattered in the expanding pool of his own blood, and the originally white skin was turning a sickening orange from the blood. Kumo style, whirlwind dance, said Karui softly, but was heard by everyone in the arena. The Konoha Genin were looking the scene before them, and were having varying reactions. Niji, Tintin, and Lee were looking at it with a somewhat disgusted look, but otherwise weren't affected by it. Shikamaru's normally bored expression was one of shock and terror combined as he swallowed the rising vomit. Choji, who had been eating a bag of chips, was currently throwing up at his chip bag, silently vowing never to eat another chip again. Ino and Sakura were pale white at the sight and were barely able to remain standing because of their shaky knees. Neither was vomiting because they never really ate, so they didn't have anything to throw up. Sai still had his neutral expression, though it was slightly faltered by the look of disgust that slightly crept onto his face. I will have to inform Danzo-sama of this, was the one thought that went through his head. I think I win, said Karui, with a bored expression on her face. Many of the Konoha Genin thought she was crazy. She had just killed someone and didn't even bat an eyelash at it. Winner, Karui, said Hate after he broke out of his stupor. He had thought that the Kunoichi would have lost since things seemed one-sided in the beginning, but he was thrown for a loop when she killed her opponent and acted so calm about it. Once the mess is cleaned up, we will start the next match. It took a few minutes before the remains of Misumi could be removed, but after the body was disposed of, the screen started scrolling through names again. It seemed that this one was taking a little longer than the others, and the Rookie 9 were holding their breath, hoping they didn't end up fighting the remaining blondes of the Kumo team. The screen finally stopped on the next combatants, and gasps were heard from the Konoha rookies. Will Sakura Harino and Ino Yamanaka please come down? Both Kunoichis made their way down to the floor, each slightly surprised that they would fight each other. Are the both of you ready? Receiving a nod from both of them. Hate brought his hand down. Begin. So how do you think this one will go, Naruto-kun? Asked Yujito to the team profiler and strategist. Poorly. Neither of them have hardly any skill. From what Kakashi told me, they have barely improved since their days in the academy. Both only know the taijutsu they were taught in the academy, and neither really have any ninjutsu. Sakura can barely use the 3 academy jutsus, and Ino can barely use those, but she also has the first of her clan jutsu as well. All in all, I'd say that this match will end in a draw, said Naruto with his eyes closed. His face contorted in concentration, and his team became slightly worried. Naruto never really had to focus to come up with excellent strategies. If he was concentrating this hard, something was off. What's wrong, Naruto? Asked Darui as he moved to stand next to his student and placed a hand on his shoulder. Karui stepped up his other side and looked at her friend with concern. Something was troubling Naruto, and it couldn't be good. Yujito got off the rail and wrapped her arms around her boyfriend's neck to help calm him down if he got worked up. Naruto's eyes suddenly snapped open with shock evident in the ocean blue orbs. So that's what I've been feeling, he muttered before looking over at the redhead from the Suna team. Are you certain that's him, Kurama? Naruto asked to his furry tenant. Yeah, kid, that's him. I know that chakra anywhere, that's definitely Shikaku's host, was the answer he received. I'll try and talk to him after the exams. Be cautious around him, kid. Shikaku may be a bloodthirsty killer, but he knows his place among the 9. When you do talk to him, flare my chakra. That should be enough to make him back off from killing you. Right, thought Naruto before cutting to Link with the fox. Be cautious around the redhead with the gourd. He's like Yujito-chan, and he has a demon, the one-tailed raccoon Shikaku. This caught his team off guard. Of all the things they were expecting him to say, it wasn't that there was another Jinchuriki in the exams. All right, Naruto, Yujito, even though Kurama and Matatabi are stronger than Shikaku, fight him with caution if you fight him at all. Karui, If you face him in the finals, I want you to forfeit. But if his status as a Jinchuriki hasn't been found out, tell them he is one. That should cause some problems for Konoha, knowing the villagers' hatred of Jinchuriki, said Darui as he shot a quick glance to the Hokage and saw him frowning at all of them, except Naruto. With the Hokage, same time. Saratobi was watching this poor example of kunoichi ability and was wondering how those two had graduated the academy. That's right, the damned civilian council managed to get control of the academy. Turning away from the match, Saratobi turned to look at his favorite blonde, only to see him with his eyes closed and a look of extreme concentration on his face. It looked like he was fighting something. He must be fighting the loyalty seal. Come on, Naruto, you can break it. Don't let them control you, thought the aged Kage in excitement and worry. His thoughts turned dark when he saw the Kumo Jounin place a hand on Naruto's shoulder and the blonde-haired slut wrapped her arms around him. They must be trying to reinforce the seal. Come on, Naruto. His hopes raised when he saw the blonde's eyes snap open with a look of shock on his face while he looked around the arena. He broke free. Saratobi was considering going over and taking the blonde away from the Kumo bastards when he saw him start to talk to them again. Damn it, they must have reinforced the seal somehow. Don't worry, Naruto. You will be back in your rightful home soon. Saratobi turned his attention back to the fight to see that it had ended in a double knock. Since neither combatant can continue, the fourth match is a draw, said Hate after checking both girls. Kakashi and Asuma jumped down and brought the girls up to the platform and sat them next to each other. Kakashi was looking at his two students and couldn't help but frown. Both of them don't have any skills. They can only do the absolute basics, and they never even try to train. Why the hell did I pass them during the bell test? Thought Kakashi before turning to face the screen again. It started scrolling names again before stopping on the next fighters. Will Shino Aburame and Kankuro of the Desert come down for the fifth match? Shino made his way down to the floor slowly with his hands in his pockets, while Kankuro mimicked his actions. So, a bug using Aburame versus a puppeteer, judging from the shape of that thing on his back and what village he comes from, this match could go either way as it is right now. Though, the advantage is probably with the Aburame at the moment, said Naruto with his arms still crossed and an interested smirk on his face. Why do you think the Aburame has the advantage? Puppeteers are tricky opponents and are good at coming up with a plan on the spot, said Karui as she watched the two go at it. Kankuro was using his puppet skills to perfection and keeping Shino at a distance. It looks like that Kankuro guy has this one wrapped up. The Aburame can't even get in close enough to strike, said Yujito with a smirk. Don't count an Aburame out so soon. They may be mostly mid-range fighters, but they are known for their calm, calculating minds as much as they are their bugs, said Darui with his arms crossed much like Naruto. True to their predictions, Shino had won the match. Though he had taken some hits from Kankuro's poisoned weapons, the insects in his body had been able to eat and neutralize all of it. Things seemed to be going in Kankuro's favor at first, but he failed to notice that Shino had planted a female beetle on him, and because of that, many other male beetles landed on his body and started draining his chakra slowly. Before Kankuro knew what had happened, his chakra was gone. His puppet was on the ground useless, and he had a kunai to his throat. Told you so, said Naruto and Darui at the same time. Karui and Yujito just pouted at being wrong again and turned to face the screen to see who would be going next. The next match caused many people, even those not from Konoha, to gasp in surprise. The competitors were Lee and Niji Hyuga. "This should be good," said Naruto with a smirk. With Team Guy. Guy was currently cursing his luck with thoughts that would make a drunken sailor blush scarlet. Guy-sensei, they can't really expect Niji and Lee to fight each other, can they? Asked Tintin with worry clearly evident in her voice. She glanced at her teammates and noticed that neither of them were acting like their usual selves. Lee was particularly quiet, with a determined and serious expression on his normally happy and carefree face. She knew that Lee considered Niji as his rival like Guy considered Kakashi his. But it seemed that Lee took his rivalry with their teammate much more seriously than their sensei did. Niji's normal scowl had been replaced by a look of mild shock mixed in with a sinister smirk. He had been itching to face Lee in a battle, just to put the annoying shinobi in his place, and to prove to him that no matter how hard one tried, no one could defy fate. Unfortunately, Tintin, they can. Once the second part of the exams is completed, there are no teams because the final part of the exams is a tournament-style battle between everyone who passed the previous two exams. Even if two competitors were siblings or relatives of any fashion, they would be forced to fight one another, said Guy in a somber tone. He knew this match wouldn't end well, no matter who the winner was. Before anything else could be said, both Niji and Lee jumped over the railing and moved so they were standing across from one another. Everyone could feel the tension in the air as the two teammates stared each other down, both ready to fight to prove their beliefs. With Team 20. This has got to be tearing Guy-Nizen apart, his most prized student and his most gifted student going head-to-head. No matter who wins this match, Guy-Nizen will be the victim, said Naruto with his head bowed slightly. Before he had left the village, Guy had introduced him to a young Lee who he claimed would one day be his successor as a taijutsu master. Though he wasn't in the same category as his other siblings, Lee was still a very close person to Naruto, and he vowed to make sure he survived this match. In the arena. The sixth match, Rock Lee versus Niji Hyuga. Are you both ready? Asked Hate, receiving two nods in return. Very well then, let the sixth match begin, he said as he jumped out of the way of the two combatants. Lee didn't waste any time. The second Hate was clear. He charged at Niji with burning determination in his eyes. Niji anticipated this and had already started getting into his jukin stance before Hate had even started the match. Moving with speed that surprised even his team, Niji batted away the incoming punch and sent a jukin strike at Lee's left shoulder. Seeing the oncoming threat, Lee used the momentum of his punch being blocked to roll out of the way of the strike and put some distance between the two of them. Why do you even bother to fight? Fate has already decided the winner of this match, said Niji as he watched his opponent with a scowl. I fight because I will prove that hard work triumphs over natural genius, said Lee in an oddly serious voice that surprised those that knew him. No one can defy fate. We are each given a path to follow at birth, and we must follow it obediently. You were born a failure. Once a failure, always a failure, said Niji as he activated his Byakugan and got into his jukin stance again. Lee frowned but didn't say anything. Instead, he reached into his orange leg warmers and pulled out two weights before throwing them at Niji's feet. Said Hyuga was confused by this move and wasn't prepared for the results. When the weights met the floor, the ground underneath him cracked and exploded with dust. Niji was slightly shocked that Lee had that much weight on him at all times. He knew his teammate trained with weights like their sensei, but he never expected him to have that much. Lee took advantage of the cover the dust provided and vanished from sight in an impressive burst of speed. The only ones who could see him were those who were used to fighting at high speeds, and those with gifted eyes. Damn, Lee got fast. I can't believe that he forced me to use your eyes just to even see him, Kurama, thought Naruto as he followed Lee's movements with his red-slitted eyes with a black scara. Same here, Kit. He's nowhere near the speeds the Bijou are capable of when we fight, but he is definitely one of the fastest humans I've ever seen, thought Kurama, with surprised evident in his thoughts. Niji was sure he would have lost his head if it wasn't for his Byakugan. The kick that passed over his head could have easily torn through a tree like a hot knife through butter. Not want to take the chance of Lee getting another try with one of those kicks. He spun around and launched a quick barrage of jukin strikes to keep Lee on the defensive. It seemed to work, as Lee couldn't get enough distance to use his speed to attack, and was forced to continuously dodge the barrage of lethal strikes. With Guy and Tintin. Tintin was having an inner battle with herself. She couldn't decide who to root for. On one hand was Lee, who always seemed to brighten her day, no matter how bad things got, and on the other was her secret crush Niji. She just couldn't decide who she wanted to win. So she decided that as long as both of them survived this match, she could live with that no matter who won. Guy was having a similar battle, though he kept leaning more and more towards his future successor. He knew that the Jukin's most lethal aspect of attacking chakra was negated by the fact that Lee's chakra system was so messed up. However, there was still the physical aspect of the attack to worry about. Please, Lee, if it looks hopeless, just surrender, thought Guy as he continued to watch as his two students fought. In the arena. Damn, I can't use my speed in this tight space. I need to get some space so I can finish this, thought Lee as he continued to dodge the dangerous taijutsu of the Hyuga clan. He got his chance when Niji stumbled on the rubble that his weights caused. Not wasting a second, he jumped back and vanished in a blur. Cursing under his breath, Niji spun around and used a Jukin enhanced palm to block the roundhouse Lee aimed at chest. Wincing at the pain the palm caused in his leg, Lee used his impressive leg strength to rotate around Niji's palm and delivered a devastating kick to the side of the Hyuga genius's head. Niji was sent sprawling because of the kick and didn't stop until he collided with the opposite wall in a heap. Getting back to his feet, Niji charged at Lee, while said taijutsu user moved to meet him halfway. They met in a flurry of taijutsu strikes, each of them unleashing a barrage of strikes from their own style. With Team 20. Something's not right, Naruto muttered under his breath. He looked at the match closer, specifically Niji, trying to figure out what was wrong. At first glance, everything seemed normal. Well, as normal as a taijutsu match between two of Konoha's most feared styles can be. The answer came to him when he noticed Niji slightly changed the trajectory of one of his Jukin strikes. Oh shit, thought Naruto as he quickly moved towards his spandex wearing sibling, garnering curious looks from his team and a hopeful one from the Hokage. Guy, he said once he was close, catching the attention of his brother and the kunoichi in training. You have to make Lee forfeit the match now. Guy was surprised, for what he could tell the match was fairly balanced with neither of his students getting the upper hand. However, he knew that his little brother would never try to sabotage a friend. It just wasn't in him to do that. But that still left the question as to why he wanted Lee to forfeit when there was still a chance for him to win. Guy, you have make him forfeit now. If not, he's going to die. Naruto tried again, this time with a little more urgency, and if Guy heard it right, fear in his voice. Now Guy was worried. Naruto didn't fear easily, but there were certain things that absolutely terrified him that he knew of, one of which was losing someone close to him. Taking another quick look towards the taijutsu match going on, he turned to his little brother with a concerned look. What's wrong, Naruto? How is Lee going to die? Naruto sighed. He knew this was going to be the hardest part for Guy, to know that one of your students was trying to kill another student you viewed as a son. Niji is using the Jukin's physical aspect to target Lee's heart. He's slightly altering weaker strikes so as not to draw attention to himself. He's already landed about 5 strikes. If he lands another 2, Lee will die, Naruto said solemnly. Guy looked a mixture of shock and rage that one of his students could be trying to kill their team mate was unforgivable to him. Lee, he shouted, grabbing the attention of everyone in the arena along with the 2 combatants. Lee must stop now. Forfeit the match. You have already proven that you are strong. That's all that matters. Lee looked at his sensei with confusion, unfortunately giving Niji an opening. Charging another Jukin palm strike, he launched it forward and nailed Lee in the chest. Lee was sent flying across the arena before crashing into the wall on the far side with a sickening crunch. Wanting to finish this now, Niji charged forward at speeds that could match a seasoned Chunin with his right hand poised to deliver the finishing blow. Guy and the other Jounins were about to move to stop the boy before anything else could happen, but before they could even move, someone beat them to the punch. Naruto stood in front of Lee holding Niji in what could only be called an execution stance. Niji was bent forward slightly with Naruto standing on his right. His right arm was being held straight out behind Naruto's back, held by said blonde's left hand. Naruto had his ninjato in the reverse grip poised at Niji's throat, ready to sever the annoying bastard's head from his body. Nobody could believe what they were seeing. They knew just from the stance Niji had taken as he charged at the down Lee that he was going to kill him. But they had never expected a foreign ninja to be the one to save Lee from his own teammate. I never did like the Hyuga clan, but to attack a fellow shinobi, your own teammate, that's low even for a Hyuga, said Naruto, his tone sending shivers down the spines of everyone resent, his team and siblings the only exception. I wonder why Itachi Nizan would kill of his own clan for their arrogance when the Hyugas have them beat in that department. With the Hokage. Naruto seems to have a friendship with Lee. Maybe I can use this to my advantage, thought Sarutobi as he watched the scene playing out before him. If Naruto had another person close to him in the village, one his age no less, it would make things easier to get the boy back in the village. Now all we need to do to make sure Naruto stays in the village is to remove that useless slut that Kumo has put on his arm. Now what is the best way to do this? Back in the arena. Lee watched the scene before him in shock. He couldn't believe that his own teammate would go so far as to try and kill him. He was about to say something before his chest erupted in pain, and he fell to the floor screaming in agony. This seemed to break everyone out of their thoughts of what had transpired and had the Jounin moving to see what was wrong. Hade had called for the medics. The second the scream left Lee's mouth and moved to relieve Naruto's hold on Niji. Guy and the other Jounin all landed in the arena and split up to help where they were most needed. Guy and Anko moved to the down form of Lee, Guy to offer support and watch over his surrogate son, and Anko to help the medics with her expert knowledge of human anatomy. Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurinai moved to help Hate with the situation Niji currently found himself in. Hate and Asuma stayed back as they watched their fellow Jounin convince the blonde shinobi to release Niji. Naruto, I know you're upset about Niji's actions towards Lee, but if you kill him now, then things will only get worse for you. He's not worth your time, little brother. Let us take care of this, said Kakashi as he watched Naruto internally debate whether or not to listen. He sighed in relief when his brother nodded in agreement and vanished in a burst of speed, leaving Niji to fall flat on his face. Kurinai reacted immediately and put the arrogant Hyuga in a Jinjutsu to keep him asleep for the remainder of the prelims so he couldn't cause any more problems. Hate, call the match, said Kakashi after he saw Guy leave with the medics carrying Lee. Winner, Niji Hyuga, said Hate as he made everyone else clear the arena so that the matches could continue. Yujito had her arms wrapped around her boyfriend's waist, trying to calm him down before anything else pissed him off. When they heard Hade announce the next match was going to be between Lee's other teammate and the girl from the Suna team, she took advantage of it and tried to take her boyfriend's mind off of what just happened. So, Naruto-kun, what do you think about this match? She knew that when he was concentrating on something that he liked, it was a hell of a lot easier to keep him calm. Naruto smiled slightly at the question. He knew what his girlfriend was trying to do, and who was he to deny her? Well, from what we've seen, and from what Guy Neeson told us, his team has no ninjutsu whatsoever. Lee is a taijutsu user for the sole reason he can't use chakra. Niji, as we just witnessed, relies solely on the Hyuga Juken style to fight. Tenten, though she is trained well in taijutsu, is a weapons user at heart, and I doubt anything will ever change that. That Temari girl appears to be a wind mistress in training, if that fan on her back is anything to go by. All in all, Temari is going to win. She is the worst possible opponent Tenten could have drawn. Her skills in using wind will prevent Tenten's weapons from ever getting anywhere near her, said Naruto, as he physically relaxed into Yujito's embrace. The rest of Team 20 was once again impressed with their teammates/students' analytical skills. They were with him when his siblings had told him about their students and about more of the higher-ranking shinobi that he would most likely run into while in the village. Kurenai. Guy and Kakashi hadn't said much about their teams, just basic skills and what their overall ranking was. Even the three of them working together wouldn't have been able to analyze what Naruto did in a matter of seconds. I don't want to have to bring this up, but we need a plan for after the prelims are over, said Karui as she glanced towards the aging Hokage when she finished. Naruto nodded in understanding. He had a feeling that once these prelims were over, the shit was going to hit the fan, big time. The old man is up to something. I can tell by the look on his face, he has a plan set up that could cause some serious problems for us, said Naruto as he glanced at the aged Kage with a calculating eye. He could tell his posture tensed as the matches progressed, meaning that whatever he had planned would start almost as soon as the prelims finished. He noticed that Sarutobi glanced in multiple directions rather quickly, but he noticed who he was looking at, all of the Konoha Kunoichi present. Judging by who the old man glanced at, things are not going to end well for anyone, especially if Yujito-chan gets wind of it, thought Naruto with slight shudder. His girlfriend could be as powerful and as terrifying as a Kage-level shinobi when she was pissed, and not even Kurama or Matatabi would dare try and get in her way. Naruto looked toward the match to see that his prediction had come true and Temari had indeed won. He had one last thought before the screen showed the next two competitors. I think it's safe to assume the old man has already signed his death warrant. We will now decide the 8th match, said Hade as the screen started flashing through the names of the remaining 8 genin. The tension seemed to mount as the screen continued to speed through names without end. All the remaining genin were tensed ready for their turn to fight. Well, all except a few. Gaara just stood motionless, not caring if he was the next to fight. He knew that whoever he fought, he would satisfy his mother with their blood. Dosu just stared at the screen with a passive look on his face. The only ones left are the Ichibi Jinchuriki, the Hyuga heiress, and Akimichi, and Inuzuka, that pale Konoha genin, 2 Kumo genin, and myself. My chances are good against any of the Konoha genin. I don't stand a chance against the Ichibi, and the 2 Kumo genin don't look that strong. However, their team may prove that they are not to be underestimated, though they still won't be able to defeat me with my sound attacks, thought Dosu as he glanced around at the remaining competitors. Kiba was leaning against the railing with an arrogant smirk on his face. In his mind, he believed no one could beat him because he was the alpha. Haha, none of these guys can beat me. I just hope I don't end up fighting Hinata-chan, he thought, glancing at his only female teammate. Though I have to say that blonde bitch from Kumo looks like she'd be fun, he thought with a perverted grin as he looked Yujito up-down from the corner of his eye. Hinata watched the screen with the patented superior Hyuga look on her face. Ever since she had met Kurenai, she had tried to imitate her Ice Queen persona, and in doing so had started following her clan's beliefs more and more. Eventually, she had become a younger female version of her father in terms of skill, and the typical superiority complex her clan had multiplied tenfold inside of her. It doesn't matter who I face, they will lose, especially those bastards from Kumo. I'll make them regret trying to kidnap me. Sai stood with his sensei and team mates with an unreadable look on his face. He had been quietly observing the matches as they progressed, noting anyone who could be of value to his master. The Uchiha was an obvious choice as his master had wanted a pure-blooded Uchiha under his control for a while now. The branch Hyuga would be of value. However, because of the cage bird seal, he wouldn't be able to pass on the Byakugan. So far, not many people here have something to offer Danzo-sama. The Uchiha and the Hyuga have promised, but we need others as well. Although that Kumo team holds promise if the offer members are just as strong as their teammate. Choji, unlike all the other remaining Konoha genin, was completely oblivious to what was going on around him, instead choosing to focus solely on the bag of chips he was currently shoveling into his mouth. Yujito was watching the screen from the corner of her eye, while she focused mainly on the Konoha Kunoichi that were present. Like Naruto, she had noticed the glances the old Kaguya had sent towards the young Kunoichi of his village. There was a strange glint in his eyes when he looked at them, but it wasn't perverted or something similar. It was a glint that held what appeared to be a calculative and plotting look. If any of those useless hussies even so much as look at MY Naruto-kun, they won't be able to give birth when I'm through with them. She thought, letting her possessive cat nature show for a second as she tightened her hold on her boyfriend. I agree, kitten. If they try anything with our mates, it will be hell to pay. But just to make sure they can't take away your mate's virginity, you should drag him off into a closet and not leave it for a few days. Once these prelims are over, came the demonic and completely perverted voice of Matatabi as she sent images of her host. And Naruto doing some very naughty things in a closet. Mata, I will not do that. We're only 13 for Kamisake. We won't be doing anything like that for a few years, replied Yujito, only to mentally slap herself as Matatabi started demanding that she tell what her plans were and sending even more images into her head of an older version of Naruto and herself doing even more naughty things. Naruto had his eyes closed as he tried to decide on the best plan of action for when his match came up. I could easily kill any of the remaining competitors if we're to use your chakra karama. However, that would make things a lot harder on us later on down the line. If I were to cripple them, then it would send a message that my team and I are not to be messed with, but that would probably make the old man panic and do something drastic, and that's something we don't need at the moment. He continued to think of the best way to go about winning his match until a familiar demonic voice came from his mind. Why are so concerned with the old man, thinking you are too far gone to save? I thought you wanted him to leave you alone, and the best way to do that is to send a message that he simply can't ignore. True Kurama. However, remember what Granny Mito's letter said. The vault containing all of the knowledge of my clan was entrusted and hidden by my father's clan. If we ever want a chance to regain the knowledge that once belonged to my clan, then I will need to get access to the Namikaze compound and try and find a clue as to where they hid the vault. The only one who knows where the compound is the old man, and if my plan for gaining access to it is to work, then I need him to still believe he can save me from Kumo, replied Naruto, getting a nod of understanding from his foxy tenant. True, kid. And if your plan works, it will not only grant you the knowledge of your mother's clan, but your father's as well. It will be a slap to the face of this hellhole of a village when they learn that they have lost the knowledge and skills that belong to the Uzumaki and the Namikaze. That is truly a move worthy of Fox, thought Kurama before they were brought out of their planning by the sound of the screen beeping signaling it had decided on the next competitors. Will Kiba Inuzuka and Yujito ni please come down for the 8th match, said Hate as he looked away from the screen and started looking at the remaining competitors. Kiba grinned at the thought of fighting the hot Kumo bitch. Now was a chance to force her to submit to him and to claim her as his. He jumped over the rail, with Akamaru following close behind him. Unknown to either of the partner Inuzukas, Kiba had released a small amount of pheromones that didn't go unnoticed by a certain blonde-haired shinobi. With Team 20. Naruto was about to give Yujito a kiss for good luck, but as he turned to face her, something in the air tickled his nose. Taking a quick sniff, trying to figure out what the strange scent was, he was suddenly overcome by a possessive nature as he pulled Yujito to him and held her tight. "What's wrong, Naruto-kun?" asked Yujito before the scent of pheromones hit her nose as well. Now she was no stranger to pheromones, as she released quite a lot of them whenever Naruto unleashed his power. Matatabi had explained to her at a young age, unfortunately, about pheromones and the effects they can have on the body. She could tell by the scent that these pheromones came from a dog, but they didn't have any love or compassion in them, just lust and a little bit of arrogance. Thankfully, her body had gotten used to the feeling of much stronger pheromones when she and Naruto almost ravaged each other when they were both using their cloaks in training. She easily ignored the pheromones, but she couldn't stop the delightful shiver that ran down her spine at her boyfriend's words. Yujito-chan, don't let that mutt lay a finger on you, or I won't be able to stop myself from killing the little bastard and then taking you to some secluded location and ravaging you," said Naruto with his voice taking on a demonic and lustful tone. Thankfully, only she heard what he said, or their sensei might have something else to say about that idea. Nodding in acknowledgement, Yujito decided to try and reassure her boyfriend by giving him a kiss that could be considered a little indecent in public, but she could care less. "Don't worry. He won't get the chance to even get close enough to me to touch me." With that, she jumped over the railing and landed in front of Hate, with Kiba standing across from her with an arrogant smirk on his face and his eyes roaming over her body, making her shiver in disgust. "Mata, if I can't finish this mutt by myself in less than 5 minutes, I'm going to use the cloak and try the first of your jutsu out," thought Yujito to her perverted tenant. "I agree, kitten. Judging by the look in this mongrel's eyes, he thinks he can make us submit to him. Let's show him what we're made of." The eighth match, Kiba Inuzuka versus Yujito ni. "Are the both of you ready?" asked Hate, receiving a confident nod from Kiba and a harsh glare from Yujito that had him suppressing a shudder and silently praying that he never pissed this particular kunoichi off. "Begin," he shouted before getting the hell out of the way, knowing this particular match was going to be a shit fest. "Now it's a hot girl like you, doing with a loser like Blondie over there. I'm the one you should be with since I'm an alpha," said Kiba, releasing his animal dominance. Is he seriously trying to make me submit to him with this pathetic dominance? Naruto-kun lets out more dominance in his sleep. If this is his maximum dominance level, then he is no alpha, thought Yujito before she charged at the stunned form of Kiba. When she was in range, she spun around and nailed the arrogant mutt with a strong heel to the face. Akamaru just stood there stunned that his partner's dominance could be thrown off so easily. He turned to look at the girl who had just knocked his partner out and felt the dominance coming from her. He wasn't as stupid as his partner to think they were alpha status, but he could tell that this girl was an alpha female not to be messed with. Hate stood stunned at how the Kumo Kunoichi had easily defeated the heir of the Inuzuka clan. If she could defeat a clan heir so easily in her team, Mate could kill one of our shinobis without breaking a sweat. This team is not to be messed with. If his teammates are anything to go by, Naruto should easily defeat any of the remaining contestants, thought Hate before checking Kiba and finding him knocked out cold. Winner, Yujito ni, said Hate as the medics came and took Kiba away. Yujito jumped back up to her team and was met with a searing kiss from her boyfriend that left her breathless and lightheaded. Way to put the mud in his place, said Karui as her two teammates continued to look into each other's eyes. Okay, that's enough for now. We don't need you two getting it on in front of everyone, she said rather loudly, producing blushes from all of the rookie nine, save for Sasuke, who was fuming at not being to activate his Sharingan, and Sayu just kept his impassive expression. Kakashi was giggling like crazy. He took out a small notepad and started writing stuff down with the intention of sending this to his favorite author. With the Hokage. She seems to be fairly skilled. Getting rid of her will be harder than I anticipated, but nothing my Umbu can't handle, thought Sarutobi as he watched the scene of Naruto and the Kumo bitch trying to eat each other's faces. Soon, Naruto. Soon you shall be returned to your true home here in Konoha, and nothing will get in my way. Back in the arena. The ninth match will be between Dosu Kinyuta and Gaara of the Desert, said Hate, as said competitors Sand Shunshined and jumped over the railing respectively. Once they were both standing across from one, another Hate gave them the signal to begin while jumping away. Dosu wasted no time and charged Gaara while pulling up his right sleeve, revealing his melody arm ready to strike. Gaara didn't even try to dodge, and when Dosu was in striking distance, Sand shot out of his guard and caught the sound genin in a cocoon of sand. Mother will have your blood, said Gaara in his deadly monotone, while raising his right arm with his palm, facing the trapped Dosu. Now die, he said before closing his hand into a fist and crushing Dosu before he even had a chance to scream. With Team 20. So that's what Shikaku grants his host, the ability to control sand, though I have a feeling that he is only scratching the surface with his sand abilities, said Naruto, as watched Gaara mercilessly kill Dosu before returning to his place in between his siblings. You're right, Kit. When the sage and his son gave us our power, we each chose a different skill to specialize in. Shikaku chose to wield the power of sand and created many jutsu using this unique skill. His container has only scratched the surface of what Shikaku is truly capable of, thought Kurama before he lay back down for a nap. Lazy fox, thought Naruto before he returned his attention to the screen that had just stopped on the next two fighters. In the arena. Will Hinata Hyuga and Choji Akimichi please come down for the 10th match? Called Hate as he glanced at the screen. Said Hyuga heiress jumped over the rail and stood in front of Hate with a patented Hyuga smirk on her face. Choji, on the other hand, tried to hide behind the rails before Asuma bribed him with barbecue to get him to fight. Fighters ready. Getting two nods, he brought his hand down before jumping back to safety. Begin. Hinata wasted no time and charged forward with a barrage of Juken strikes. Choji tried to dodge as many as he could, but a few managed to meet their mark on his body, namely his legs. Hinata jumped back, seeing that her opponent was all but finished now that he couldn't dodge. Why don't you just go ahead and surrender your no match any Hyuga, especially not the heiress of the clan, she said with the classic Hyuga death glare. Poor Choji didn't know what to do. He could see that he had no chance of winning this match, not with the condition his leg was in, but he also didn't want to disappoint his sensei. Plus, all that barbecue was a very tempting reason to continue. In the end, he raised his hand, spoke in a resigned voice. Proctor, I forfeit the match. Hinata's smirk grew, if that was possible, when she heard that. It just reinforced her belief that she was untouchable because of who she was. With Team 20. What a bitch, said Yujito as she watched the two Konoha ninja walk back to their respective teams. She couldn't help but notice the scowl on Kurenai's face as she looked at her only female student. I guess that's why she doesn't mind leaving her team behind. The only decent one is the Aburame while his teammates are both arrogant pricks. So that's the heiress of the Hyuga clan. Not much of a kunoichi if that's the attitude she shows towards her own allies, said Naruto as he glanced at the only remaining competitor other than himself. Something doesn't feel right about him. Since they're the last two competitors left, will Naruto Uzumaki and Sai please come down for the final match, said Hate as he fought down a coughing fit. Sai jumped over the rail and landed in front of Hate with his still expressionless face. Naruto just stood with his team with an annoyed look on his face. Seriously, how many times do I have to tell them before they start using my true name? Screamed Naruto in his head while his eyebrow began to twitch. Naruto Uzumaki, please come down for your match. Hate tried once again, only succeeding in making said blonde's eyebrow twitch faster. How many times do I have to tell you people before you get it right? It's Naruto Namikaze, you idiots, he screamed before he jumped down to the floor, his face still displaying his annoyance. Hate looked to the Hokage with shock and a little anger clearly written on his face. Sarutobi had personally told him that the boy's name was Uzumaki and that he was somehow related to his late sensei. Shacking off his shock, for the most part, he turned back to the two, shinobi waiting for the signal to begin. Very well. The last match. Naruto Namikaze versus Sai. Are you both ready? He asked, getting a nod from Naruto, while Sai just remained motionless. Begin, he said, just barely jumping away before Sai lunged forward with a brush and scroll in his hands. Naruto jumped back, tried to figure out what his opponent's abilities were. A brush and a plain scroll? What the hell kind of technique could he use with those? His answer came in the form of a lion made of ink charging for him. Ink? He must infuse his chakra with the ink to control whatever he draws and use it as a weapon. Seems he's a long-range fighter and doesn't like to get in close. Though with that Tonto on his back, he's probably skilled enough to hold his own if someone managed to get in close enough, thought Naruto, as he continued to dodge the lion that Sai had created as well as a newly drawn tiger. Damn, if only I knew some water jutsu. Then taking care of these drawings would be a piece of cake. How is it I'm blessed with an affinity towards every element, except the one that would make my life so much easier right now? Naruto ranted in his head as he continued to dodge the ink monsters that seemed to keep multiplying. Sights mean. His skills don't seem to be as high as everyone expected. It would appear that Orochimaru's spy was more accurate about his skills than he thought Sai as he continued to bombard Naruto. With his ink creatures. Still, if my master wants him brought under his control, then so be it. With that thought in mind, he made another ink lion before he moved his brush to the bottom of his scroll, and with a few small strokes drew the main mind control seal that would control the branch seal he would place on his target. Unfortunately for him, though, Naruto noticed his slight movements. What the hell was with those small strokes at the bottom of his scroll? Thought Naruto as he continued to dodge the ink monsters. Judging by the size of the strokes and the area that he used for it, it probably is a safe bet that it's some kind of seal. Now, the only question is what kind of seal. I doubt it's a storage seal. An explosive seal is a possibility if he plans to incorporate it into one of his monsters. Damn, I guess I'll have to get in close and try and see what he's planning. With that, he took out his ninjato and charged headlong into the swarm of beasts, much to the shock of everyone who didn't know him. Charging wind chakra into the blade, the fox head opened and surrounded the blade, a small whirlwind. Raising his right arm so it was parallel to the ground, he jumped into the air once he reached the small army of ink creatures and began spinning at extreme speeds. Cloud style, tornado blade storm, said Naruto as a tornado surrounded him and started slicing into the army of ink creatures with ease. For a brief second, none of the spectators could see a thing as the ink creatures exploded into a shower of black ink. Taking advantage of the temporary distraction, Naruto moved behind, Sai using speed that would have made a Jounin green with envy. Looking where he saw Sai draw that small seal, he noticed what appeared to be the starter of a seal chain. A seal chain. There aren't many things that require a seal chain, so what could he be planning? Thought Naruto as he moved back to his original position. Even if I just started learning about seals, the Uzumaki basics covered a wide range and already started going into seal chains. Let's see, from what I know, a seal chain could be used for explosives, barriers, preservation, and mind control. Though on the inside, he was surprised and a little disgusted that the Hokage would try to have a mind seal placed on him. His face never betrayed his feelings as it just remained impassive. Time to end this and give Konoha another big surprise. He thought before going through a series of hand signs that his team recognized immediately. With Team 20. So he's getting serious already. Something must have pissed him off if he's already resorting to his ninjutsu, said Karui as she glanced at the Hokage from the corner of her eye. Why do I have the feeling that that old geezer is to blame for this? Because he is, said Yujito, catching the attention of her teammate and sensei. You wouldn't have noticed it unless you knew what to look for, but Naruto-kun's eyes hardened for a split second before returning to their expressionless state. I don't know what it is, but something set him off, and no doubt it involves the Hokage. That's the only reason he would be using a jutsu with his black lightning already. He's planning on giving the Hokage a heart attack and something else to worry about. He doesn't know about his lightning style armor yet. But if he shows them he has the black lightning, they'll know he is of great importance to Kumo, and hopefully it will deter them long enough for us to come up with a plan to handle things. You're right, Yujito. Naruto knows the value of information and the element of surprise. He wouldn't reveal one of his greatest secrets and weapons to the enemy if he didn't have a plan, said Darui as he continued to watch his successor go through hand signs. In the arena. Lightning style, black lightning strike, he said as black sparks of lightning began to arc around his arm. Raising his arm, so if it was aimed at his emotionless opponent, a bolt of lightning blacker than an Uchiha's eyes shot toward the stunned Sai at speeds that could match a Kage. With the Hokage. Black lightning? Has Kumo gone as far as to teach him one of their most prized techniques to try and corrupt him with power? Still, this does present a problem. If Naruto wields the black lightning, then Kumo won't give him up easily. We'll have to wait for an opportunity to present itself to return Naruto to his true home. Although that won't stop us from eliminating that slut that hangs of his arm. Be patient, Naruto. Soon you will be home. With Kakashi. The black lightning and the lightning style armor? With him having both of those techniques in his arsenal, Kumo won't give him up at all. We can only hope that the Hokage doesn't try anything foolish or it could lead to all-out war between Kumo and Konoha. And I already know where my allegiance would lie, thought Kakashi with a small smile towards his little brother. In the arena. Black lightning that should be impossible, thought Sai as his face displayed an emotion for the first time in many years' fear. He hadn't felt such fear since he began his training under Danzo. He'd gone on multiple missions that would be considered suicide for most shinobi his age, and he had come back alive. But now it was clear he was going to die and nothing could save him. All he could do was watch as the lethal jutsu made its way closer and closer to him, never once wavering in its speed or accuracy. "Forgive me, Danzo-sama. I failed my mission," were his last thoughts before the attack made contact with his chest, right where his heart was. He opened his mouth in a silent scream as the lightning spread throughout his body, turning his organs to ash. However, the lightning stopped at his chest as it pierced through his body, destroying his heart as it went. "Black lightning that should be impossible," thought Sai as his face displayed an emotion for the first time in many years, fear. He hadn't felt such fear since he began his training under Danzo. He'd gone on multiple missions that would be considered suicide for most shinobi his age, and he had come back alive. But now it was clear he was going to die and nothing could save him. All he could do was watch as the lethal jutsu made its way closer and closer to him, never once wavering in its speed or accuracy. "Forgive me, Danzo-sama. I failed my mission," were his last thoughts before the attack made contact with his chest, right where his heart was. He opened his mouth in a silent scream as the lightning spread throughout his body, turning his organs to ash. However, the lightning stopped at his chest as it pierced through his body, destroying his heart as it went. "Black lightning that should be impossible," thought Sai as his face displayed an emotion for the first time in many years, fear. He hadn't felt such fear since he began his training under Danzo. He'd gone on multiple missions that would be considered suicide for most shinobi his age, and he had come back alive. But now it was clear he was going to die and nothing could save him. All he could do was watch as the lethal jutsu made its way closer and closer to him, never once wavering in its speed or accuracy. "Forgive me, Danzo-sama. I failed my mission," were his last thoughts before the attack made contact with his chest, right where his heart was. He opened his mouth in a silent scream as the lightning spread throughout his body, turning his organs to ash. However, the lightning stopped at his chest as it pierced through his body, destroying his heart as it went. Naruto canceled the jutsu and watched on as the lifeless body fell to its knees before falling face first onto the arena floor. There was no blood as the lightning had cauterized the gaping hole in his chest. No one breathed. No one moved. They were all too stunned at what they had just seen to do anything. Sasuke was, once again, scarred out of his mind at the power Naruto wielded. He would often still have nightmares about that day on the bridge, about the power that he had witnessed, the carnage he had seen, and the fear he had felt. He only now realized that he had only seen Naruto use one jutsu that day, and that he had decimated an army with nothing but his ninjato. Now he had seen what the blonde was truly capable of, the destruction he could cause with only one simple jutsu. He had read about that particular jutsu in the academy, and it was only a C-rank jutsu, as it was designed to paralyze the target while causing minor burns on the body. That very same jutsu had just been used to punch a hole through someone's chest. Am I truly that weak compared to him? He thought as he watched the blonde walk toward his team, leaving the body in the middle of the arena. Sakura and Ino were reliving the fear they felt when they were on the bridge fighting Zabuza with this blonde and his team. After they returned from that mission, they weren't themselves for about a week. Their families tried to get them to talk about what was bothering them, but the only thing they could ever manage to get out of them was demon massacre. The only thing that had managed them to get out of their funk was for Kurenai to cast a Jinjutsu on them that helped them forget about what they saw. Now, though, all those memories were resurfacing, and the fear they felt that day returned with a vengeance as they both slumped against the wall and lost consciousness as their fear once again overwhelmed their minds. Kakashi, Kurenai, Guy, and Anko were all mentally congratulating their little brother on the win. The fact that he killed someone to it never even crossed their minds. If anything, it made their pride in Naruto grow that much more. It proved that he knew what it would take to be a shinobi and that he wasn't afraid about having to kill someone to fulfill his duties as a shinobi. Orochimaru was almost foaming at the mouth with what he was seeing. How had his spies not found out about this gem that would be in the exams? His main target may have been Sasuke, but this boy was proving to be a good second choice. I will deal with my spies later. For now, I must find a way to mark this promising host to make sure he comes to me for power. He thought before he noticed that his old sensei was eyeing the boy similar to how he was. It seems I might have to postpone my plans for marking the boy. If Sarutobi sensei is that interested in the boy, it could be dangerous to interfere with whatever he's planning for the boy. Besides, once the invasion is over, Sarutobi will be dead, and I will have the opening I need to mark the boy. Hiruzen Sarutobi had seen many things in his time as a shinobi. He had watched his comrades fall at the hands of the enemy during the Second Shinobi World. He had witnessed one of Orochimaru's experiments he conducted before he fled the village. He had sent many shinobi to their deaths when he gave them a mission during the last World War. But nothing could have prepared him for the sight he had just witnessed. To see someone you consider a grandson kill one of your shinobi so easily and without so much as a hint of remorse shook him to his core. Has Kumo corrupted him so much that he doesn't even feel guilt or remorse for ending another life, especially one so young? Or has he truly severed his ties with us? And no, I will not give up. Deep down, I know that he is killing himself for the actions he is committing. Forcing someone to kill one of their own, Kumo has truly fallen from grace. Winner, Naruto Namikaze, said Hate as he continued trying to get over the fact that Genin had just used a C-rank capture-based jutsu, like an A-rank assassination jutsu. But his skills with the sword remind me so much of Kushina-sensei, yet he looks so much like the fourth. Thought Hate, he immediately noticed the spark of life in his eyes when he wielded his sword. It was the same spark that Kushina-sensei always had whenever she used her own katana. There is no doubt then, he must be Kushina-sensei's and the fourth son. I will have to speak to Kakashi about this revelation. If anyone would know the truth, then it would be him. Shaking off his shock and pushing his thoughts to the back of his mind for now, Sarutobi made his way down to the arena and called everyone who had won their matches down to stand in front of him. When everyone was assembled, he cleared his throat to catch their attention. Congratulations to all of you for making it this far in the exams. Now, before we begin the final part of the exams, everyone will draw a number from the box that Anko is holding to determine who will face who in the final exam. Anko stepped forward and started with her little brother before making her way down the line of Genin. Now, will each of you please read off your number for Ibiki? 1, 5, 3, 9, 2, 4, 8, 10, 6, 7. Ibiki nodded before turning the paper he was writing on for them to see the order of the matches. First match, Naruto Namikaze versus Niji Hyuga. Second match, Sasuke Uchiha versus Shino Aburame. Third match, Karui versus Gaara of the Desert. Fourth match, Shikamaru Nara versus Temari of the Desert. Fifth match, Yujito Ni versus Hinata Hyuga. Now that the matches have been decided, you all will be given 1 month to train and prepare for the finals. You are all dismissed. You will be instructed where to meet after the month-long break, said Sarutobi as he watched the Chunin hopefuls leave with their senseis and teams. I need to speak with the council. The sooner plans are made and implemented, the sooner we will return Naruto to his one true home. Unbeknownst to him, he was being followed by a familiar person with spiky blonde hair who had plans of his own to put into effect. Whatever you're planning, you old fool, I'll make sure the boss knows about it.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.